Guys, I am lucky enough to review quite a few shoes, and I've got to say that today's shoe could be the best looking shoe, in my opinion, that I've reviewed. Now, some of you may think, man, that shoe looks a little plain, but it's plain and understated in a way that's beautiful like an iPhone. And when I get my hands on it, it just feels very well made. I've had a good time running in the shoe and putting it through its paces. Guys, this is the TERYX Norvan LD3. The LD stands for long distance. That doesn't mean you have to run long distances in this shoe. In fact, I haven't run any ultra marathons in this shoe, but it's comfortable. It encourages you to run longer. All right, let's get into it. My friends, TERYX was good enough to send me a pair of the Norvan LD3 for the purpose of review. However, no one at TERYX is going to get the chance to see this video before you do here on YouTube. And with that, the price, $165 for the Norvan LD3. And when I first got this pair of shoes and I was looking it up, I thought $165 maybe a little on the expensive side. However, now that I have run in it enough, I think $165 represents incredible value. However, I have seen it at some places being sold for less than $165. So I want you to shop around. Now, this shoe has been out for a while, and that's probably the reason that some places are discounting it. But if you did pay $165 for the shoe, you won't feel ripped off. The shoe feels really good underfoot, and as I've already said, this thing is sharp looking. It just looks smooth. I just want to lick it. But I've been running through a lot of dirt and mud, so probably best to keep my tongue in my mouth. The Norvan LD3 has 29mm in the heel, 23 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. Now, it looks a lot thicker than that on the back, doesn't it? But your foot actually goes a lot deeper than the midsole looks, and that gives a nice feeling of stability when you're on the trails. In a US men's size 9, the Norvan LD3 will tip the scale at 9 ounces even, which is about 265 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 13 tips the scale at 11.7 ounces or 332 grams. Now, I don't know about you, but looking at this shoe, it looks like it weighs heavier than it really does. In fact, even as I'm holding the shoe just right in front of me, it feels deceptively light. Like the shoe looks like it should weigh more than it does. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like this shoe so much, why I like how it looks, because even though it's very understated, hidden underneath this understated exterior is a very light trail shoe that can hold its own with a lot of the bigger competitors. All right, my friends, let's start at the top. Let's work our way down, then we'll talk about ride. Look at this heel collar. I think this is almost perfect. We have a good amount of padding right around the heel collar. It's very comfortable to put your foot into the shoe, but it's not like a daily trainer, which obviously this is a trail shoe. This is probably going to get a little wet now and again if we're ever splashing through river crossings or, I don't know, running in wet mud, neither of which I really have a chance to do around where I live. But still, it's good to see that they haven't overdone it with the heel padding around the heel collar. The heel counter is very rigid, gives a good grip around my heel as my heel sits in, and I had no issues with my heel moving around when the shoe was in. The insole is completely removable. It's very thin, it's very aerated. You guys have just realized, and you guys can't see this, but there are aerated holes punched all the way through the midsole, and I can see the light of the light shining on me now. So that is going to help keep the insole just a little drier than it might ordinarily be if it didn't have holes punched in it. The upper is a very breathable mesh. Now on this colorway, the tan is a very breathable mesh, and it gets very breathable from this little window here all the way down the front. And these parts of it are actually, again, it's deceptive because it doesn't look like it's going to be breathable, but it's actually very thin. And I do get a lot of breathability when I was running in this shoe. The tongue is aerated. Just like the insole, there are holes punched all the way through the tongue, going all the way up. And again, that just keeps the tongue nice and breathable. And the tongue is fairly thin. And, you know, certainly not a race day tongue. That's not what we're after on a shoe like this. But I would say it provides the minimum amount of protection and coverage without being too little. It's really spot on. The tongue is gusseted on both sides. On the inside, there is no lace loop on the front, but again, it is gusseted. So we really don't need that lace loop to hold the tongue in place. The best part about the tongue is this loop right on the front. You see that? I just love this loop. When I'm putting my foot in, I can hold up just to hold the tongue out of the way. I don't know why this kind of loop isn't on more shoes. I find this a lot more handy than I ever do with a heel pull, which, by the way, this shoe doesn't have, but it's not needed. We have a tongue loop, which is a much more, I don't know, intelligent design. Let's talk about overlays, because there are a lot of them. Now we have the typical overlays coming right along the eyelet chain, but then you can see these TPU lines coming down the lateral side and again on the medial side, but you can also see this. Now in my colorway, it's very easy to see. We have the tan mesh, and then we have this TPU kind of wrapping right around the foot, right around the toes, which it's a good thing because it keeps the upper off your feet and it's going to protect your feet and your toes from any debris. It's quite protected right here on the front. If you accidentally kick a rock while you're running, the shoe is going to keep your little tootsies nice and protected. This TPU overlay that wraps around the entire shoe and comes right up the back, it is going to give you a lot of protection. It's going to keep the upper with a little integrity. It's going to keep it standing up. So when you cinch down those laces, you obviously get a good midfoot lockdown. But here's the thing, and I haven't actually run into this problem, but here's what I see as a problem with this shoe. It's almost like it's a welly. What do you call a welly in the US? Gumboots, maybe? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. In the UK, we call it a welly, a Wellington boot. And basically, they're rubber boots and they keep your feet dry. As children, we'd wear them and we'd go splashing in the puddles and our feet would stay dry. That is what this reminds me of. It's got that level of protection. So look, if you are going through a stream crossing, this is going to keep your feet fairly dry. Even if you're just running in some wet mud, you're going to be able to get into some pretty deep mud and your feet are going to be well protected. And I think that is the intent behind this TPU overlay coming around the shoe. Where I see the problem is if you do a stream crossing. Even here in Florida, I have done several races where I've had to cross rivers, cross streams, cross little creeks, and your feet get fully submerged. The problem I'm seeing is that I don't see a way for any liquid that gets inside to drain out. And maybe it does. Maybe this is porous and I just can't see where it would come out. But that's my first issue. Now, to be honest, I think I can't even say 99% of the time my feet don't get that wet. And when I'm running on the trails around where I live, I generally don't get my feet soaked. But if I did know I was going through a stream crossing, probably wouldn't reach for the shoe. Well, you know what? If I ever found a stream crossing, I'd love to take these out and test them to actually find out if my theory is correct. But I don't know. I just not sure about the drainage. But I've gone on about this too long because I don't want that to take away if you are considering getting the Norvan LD3, because at least for what I use it for the trails that I've been running on, it has worked like a charm. And I think the positive attributes of this shoe far outweigh that one negative, which I'm not even sure is a negative, just what I thought about when I looked at it. Okay, that's the upper. Let's come down to the midsole. TERYX is using an EVA polyophyllene blend. It's actually a solid midsole. It rides very much like a road shoe in that it's soft and responsive, and when I'm running on the road, I don't really get that feeling that I'm running in a trail shoe. But I'm getting ahead of myself because I wanted to talk about that once we talked about the outsole. But while we're on the midsole, an EVA polyophyllene blend, let me just turn on the durometer and we'll go right here at the heel. We've got a reading of 35, 36 in the heel and 35 in the forefoot. So yeah, definitely a nice protective feeling when I'm running on the roads and when I'm running on the trails. Now, most of the trails that I run on are fairly soft. However, I do get into areas that are quite rocky. Not big rocks, boulders, like in the mountains, but like little rocks, where when you step on one, you can feel it coming through the shoe sometimes. And with that, let's get down to the outsole. Because TERYX is using the Vibram light base and the Mega Grip outsole. And there are actually quite a lot of trail shoes that use this light base Mega Grip combo. And that is for the simple reason that it really is a solid option. It gives a lot of grip on the trails. These 4mm lugs are going to dig in when you need it to dig in. They're going to provide a lot of traction. But I think looking at it, right, we can see these lugs. It looks grippy. We know it's going to hold on when we're running on sandy trails or muddy trails. It's a good option. The lugs have a nice spacing, so they're not going to hold on to any mud. But I think most surprising to me was when I was running to the trails and I have to run on the roads for a couple of miles. The Norvan LD3 felt phenomenal running on the roads. So this light base and Mega Grip outsole, it's not such a firm formulation of outsole rubber that it feels like you're getting beat up when you're running on the roads. In fact, I just thought of this now as I'm thinking about the Norvan LD3 being a good road to trail option. Hold on one second. When I was talking about it being a good road to trail option, it reminded me of the Hoka Challenger 7. And this is a great road to trail option, but I think this is also a good road to trail option, even if the Norvan LD3 probably isn't marketed as a road to trail option. The Challenger 7 is what it reminded me of with its feeling on the road. However, I think the Norvan LD3 is just going to be a little bit more competent on the trails. This light base and Mega Grip outsole really does the job. Well, where was I? As far as ride goes, okay, good on the trails, lots of grip, good on the roads, getting to the trails, or if you had to run to the trailhead, I don't know what the trails are like where you live, but in all likelihood, at some point when you're running on a trail, you're probably going to have to run on some paved surfaces. The Norvan LD3 handles it very well. Now, when I was going up and down hills, I had a good grip. In my training, I didn't run longer than an hour and 45 minutes in this shoe. So I really can't speak for the long distance attributes. I would say you'd have to go out and run an ultra, but after doing my test runs, putting the shoe through its paces, I would have no problem choosing this shoe for a long distance race. It's just that comfortable, actually on my foot and on the run. You know what I mean? Like there's enough protectiveness to tackle most types of trails. And then of course, the lockdown, everything about the upper is just very comfortable. Oh, one more thing I didn't mention was the toe box. Now look, this isn't super wide, but I found it wider than a lot of other shoes. And it did give my toes a good feeling of room. It's certainly not a foot-shaped toe box. I think that's probably a reg registered trademark, but they have made it a little wider. So perhaps if you have wider feet, the Norvan LD3 is going to be one to take a look at. And now that I'm holding it up, I am noticing this sole flare right here, and from the bottom, it's just a wide flat base. It's going to give you a lot of support. It's going to be very stable on the trails. At least that was my experience. Guys, I don't know if you know anything about TERYX. They make their equipment for the mountains. They're on the west coast of Canada. They know some pretty bad weather, and they design their equipment accordingly. I think this shoe fits right in to what TERYX's vision is for the equipment they want to produce. It's a solid shoe. I definitely recommend it, if for no other reason than it just looks super sharp. Anyway, if you have made it to this point in the video, why don't you drop the knife emoji in the comments, because knives are sharp. This shoe looks sharp. See what I'm doing there? And my name's Matt. This has been my review of the TERYX Norvan LD3. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.